Let's talk about community. A lot of people confuse off-grid living with isolationism, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I don't know about you, but the loneliest I have ever been was when I lived in a city of 1 million people. Off-grid living does allow you to have a little space between you and your neighbors. Gives you the ability to choose when you want to have social interactions, and allows you to be a little more selective of who you let into your space. You may have heard the phrase, "it takes a village." That's also true in off-grid living and homesteading. Your community, and especially your contributions to it, are still a necessity. There are a few things that we've learned along the way that would have been really helpful to know right when we got out here. If you're coming from a city or a larger town, you had a certain degree of anonymity. There were so many people that if you had one bad interaction with one person because you were having a bad day, it wouldn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things. In a small rural community, that interaction will be passed down generation to generation, becoming family lore, and then future decisions about you will be based on that. I found that people are held accountable for their actions, and especially their interactions with the members of that community when you live with a small, tight-knit group of people. Oh, that one's going to be a bad boy.
It's naughty.
It's very naughty. For a lot of people who live this way, going to town, the grocery store, or even the gas station is a social activity. When those trips happen infrequently, it's the quality of interaction that's remembered and what you build your name on. You will need people to trade with. Whether you have an abundance of produce or you have a skill to trade, you're going to find other people in a small community who have other skills and other produce that'll be willing to trade with you. Horse trading is a lot more common in a small rural community than it is in the city. The way people used to do it was they would get really good at doing a few things, and then they would trade those few things with other people who got really good at doing their few things so that they could have all the things. This was a major confusion for me at first. I let myself believe that I had to do everything myself. This led to two basic problems. There are an infinite number of things that you're going to have to do when you're first setting up your off-grid homestead. It becomes super easy to get overwhelmed and spend all your time doing things that you can do, but that don't really get you ahead at all. The second was never really getting very good at anything, and instead just getting meh at a lot of things. Being okay at a lot of things will get you by, but what kind of exchange value does that have for others? When I realized this, I decided to get to a professional level of skill at one thing. The thing I picked was welding. I found some classes at a local city college about an hour away, took all the classes I possibly could on welding, and got my certification. Then after a lot of hours under the hood and a ton of practice, I became a really good welder, and now I use that skill to barter for most of the things we need. We even bartered my wife's skills as a music teacher to acquire the house we live in now. That's a story for another video. Number 3, you will need help from time to time. I found in rural communities, people are more than willing to help to a degree. I've heard the saying, if a neighbor asks you for help, you help them. More times than you'd think. I've also seen two basic philosophies when it comes to help. You can go around asking for help until one day you start hearing, "I'm sorry, I just don't have time today." At which point you realize the lesson from tip number 1, or you can keep your attention on what you can do to help the people in your community with what you got good at in tip number 2. In the first tip, you will come to a point where you've run through the entire list of all the people who are willing to help you. You will no longer get help, which will lead to the overwhelm we were talking about earlier. Keeping your attention on what you can do to contribute to your community and being known as a person who can help others, you never have to make too many calls to find the help you need. In fact, it's often offered before you even know you need the help. So to recap, make sure every interaction that you have with every person in a small community is of high quality. Learn a skill you can trade at a professional level with your community, and keep your attention on helping the people in your community, and you'll always get the help you need. You do those 3 things, you're going to get along just fine.